Welcome back to Our Community. Susie Thomas visiting with Linda Chen and Scott Watkins from the Canton Audubon Society. But there probably is a chapter near you, yes?
Yes.
And we'll do this again, but where can we get more information? What is your website?
Well, first of all, our email is very easy to remember.
Okay.
It is cantonaudubonsociety@gmail.com.
Great.
So we check that regularly, and we can answer questions. We also have our website, which Scott manages. It's cantonaudubon.org.
Okay, cantonaudubon.org. You can get all the information that we're talking about on this, or most of it, or go to Canton Audubon Society at Gmail.
We can answer very specific questions when you
Perfect.
Email us about that.
Perfect. All right, we talked all about good food for birds. Is there bad food for birds?
Well, I'll first touch on one thing is if you are feeding the birds, for instance, if you're feeding cracked corn, if you're scattering that, only scatter small amounts because corn itself can get moldy. And meaning that birds eat that or other animals eat that, they can get sick. You'll attract turkeys and things like that, but only feed small amounts, especially if it's wet, or maybe hold back on that. And also shelled seed, like sunflower seeds, they're great, but when it's really wet, if you put them in a feeder that's getting wet, they can mold as well. So be careful with shelled seeds. Feed them only what they will eat in a day. And one other real quick thing about types of feeders. There are feeders that are made out of screen, or they're kind of like bags, like netting bags. Mm-hmm. You have to be really careful with those because when it is wet and when it is raining and you have a lot of seed in there, that can get wet and that can get moldy. And you're basically making birds sick, but you're throwing money away too. Mm-hmm. So enclosed feeders are always the best way to go. So I want to say that, and then...
What about cleaning them? Because it seems like if they get dirty, that would not be good for the food.
Right. It's not good for the food, importantly, but it's definitely not good for the birds because there are diseases that can spread. Specifically, the ones that have been giving us problems is the house finch, what is called conjunctivitis, just as simple like we do. Their eyes get swollen, and there's no way they can get treated. So it spreads from bird to bird because it's very contagious, and it causes them basically to go blind. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of treatment unless you can catch them and bring them into like a wildlife center to get them treated. So you want to keep those feeders clean by just basically cleaning them out and putting them in a solution of bleached water or vinegar water, and then letting them dry thoroughly, and then refilling them about once to every 1 to 2 weeks.
Perfect. Can sick birds lead to sick humans?
Technically not. Typically, you don't see most diseases will spread from birds to humans, so that it's not a huge concern there. But
I'm remembering bird flu.
Yeah,
I know.
Was that a misnomer?
No. Well.
Oh, and a big thing we wanted to bring up too is not to feed bread to birds. Bread is like junk food to birds. It gives them absolutely no nutrition and actually causes more problems, especially in birds that are developing, that it will cause them to not develop right and never to be able to fly. We get lots of admitted ducks into the wildlife center that have developed eating bread, and because of the lack of nutrition bread gives them, they develop a condition called angel wing. And it prevents them from flying for the rest of their life.
So they really can't. And ducks do need to know how to fly.
And they do need to know how to fly.
Yes.
So bread does nothing for birds. And
I'm feeling so guilty right now because I grew up feeding bread to ducks.
I think we all did.
Okay.
So it's just a new generation. We have to kind of
We're smarter.
spread the word on that. Yeah, with our kids.
So if you're going to be near a lake and you would love to feed some ducks, is there some kind of good duck food to take along with you to have on hand? What can you feed them?
Yes, there is, and especially grown birds. You want to feed 15% poultry feed. It's available at places like Tractor Supply. At most feed stores have poultry supply, and it gives them that 15% crude protein that they need, and it's good for them. That's what we feed to them at the wildlife center when they're admitted. Great.
And if you just want to feed them randomly a little bit here and there, not regularly, you can get some cracked corn and throw that, and they'll on the ground up near the water, they'll come up and eat that as a kind of a treat to their diet.
This is really a good public service because that's very important, and I'm wondering how many people really know because that's been such a common practice.
I know.
And yeah.
For
Right.
years.
How
For
often
years.
how often do you see people throwing dried bread out to birds? And yes, it is a treat for them, but if it becomes their primary food source,
Whoa.
it can be damaging.
As a kid, I don't know about you too, dried bread out to birds. My mom all the time.
Absolutely. Well, what is our favorite scene in Mary Poppins? The bird lady, and
that's
maybe the most
right.
beautiful song in that whole movie is Feed the Birds. That's kind of what we're talking about here. There are times, though, when we look around and try as we may, we don't see any birds. What's happening then?
Well, a lot of times the people you'll read this in the winter, really really bad, and they're coming to your feeder. It's rotten weather, and then it warms up a little bit. The snow's gone, and all of a sudden people are like, "Where are the birds? What happened to them?" And generally they're running out. They've flown out, and they're finding some natural food sources that they really like to eat. I kind of say that feeders can kind of be like fast food for us. It's a quick place to go get food you need to eat now as opposed to cooking dinner. And they're kind of out searching for food. So birds do like natural.
Okay.
And
So,
they like our feeders as a supplement.
all right. So we're the McDonald's
Kind
of birds.
But it's healthy.
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 Yes.
Healthy.
But healthy.
And
Okay.
in the spring too, real quick on nesting, when birds are nesting, predominantly all birds feed their nestlings protein, and insects are protein. So the birds are so busy, the parents are so busy collecting insects for their babies that they don't have time to hit the feeders. So people in the spring will also say, "What happened to all my birds? My birds are gone." They're busy. They are, hunting for bugs. They're just eating the bugs on their own because they don't have time.
So it's okay
to
if
come
you
and
don't
look pretty
see
at your
them.
house,
Right.
yeah.
That's not their main purpose.
Right.
As much as we enjoy it. Sometimes we also just see them on the ground. What should we do? We
Right.
want to help them.
Right.
What
So
should
if
we
you
do?
see, birds go through stages. So they incubate the eggs hatch, their nestlings, and then they become what they call a fledgling. It's a bird that has about a week left until it's able to fly and function completely on itself, to where the mother and father are taking care of it, but it's on the ground. The best thing you can do if you find one of those is if it's near a pet, you want to keep your pet away from it, right? So then you also want to move it towards where it has shelter. And then watch to see if mom and dad are taking care of it.
Is it okay for us to touch it? What's
Oh,
the best way to carry forward? Well,
The
we don't
best
want
way
them
to-
to leave it alone because it smells human on it.
Exactly. They don't. That's a myth.
Okay.
Birds don't smell like that, so they're not going to worry about smelling you on it. They're going to be near and they're going to be listening for their baby to call, right? So you want to go up and put the bird in a safe place.
Away from
and
the dog.
Away from the cats, away from the dogs, anything that's going to hurt it, and like under a shrub. Watch for the parents. The parents will be around every half hour to an hour to feed this bird. If it goes a day without you seeing a parent at all, maybe it's time to go pick it up and take it to a wildlife center.
Or
for
if you see it's
rehabilitation.
visibly injured.
Take it to Scott.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
Scott, you do volunteer at the Wildlife Conservation Center.
Right. So I volunteer at a place in Stark Park called the Wildlife Conservation Center, and we get lots of intakes, thousands of intakes a year that we take care of injured and orphaned animals. And you do your best with them, and sometimes you don't need to have that bird because the best place for it is allowing the parents to take care of it.
Okay.
And it is located, by the way, at Sippo Lake in Stark County, Perry Township. So I think, are they in the phone book? They would be on the
they are.
Stark County Park District's website.
Yes.
So if you do have an injured or orphan animal, or if you have a question, maybe you're not sure, go ahead and give them a call. Scott's wife, as a matter of fact, is an employee there.
Well, it's maybe the most beautiful office space in Stark County. My goodness, that's so pretty. All right, I have had a problem with gorgeous wreaths, hanging gorgeous wreaths on my door, and then the birds think that they're gorgeous as well and decide that that's exactly when they want to build their nest right there. And now I'm afraid to open the front door and let people in, or what do you do? Just let them, I've just kind of let them have the door and then clean the door up after they fly away. But what's the best thing to do there?
Oh, the best thing to do is allow them, once they move in and start nesting, and you don't want to disturb the nest when there are eggs because they are
Right.
protected. So you want to give them that time, and it's a very, very small, finite period of time that you have to give them to allow them to become full-grown birds. So you just try to keep things away from that nest while they're growing for that 2 to 3 weeks.
Very fun to watch the eggs and count your eggs and then see how they hatch. And it is kind of exciting.
It is. You know, another thing, too, is if you happen to have a bird that nests on your wreath and they're very, very successful,
Yes.
maybe take that wreath and just hang it a little ways off to the side once they're gone. And if they decide they want to re-nest in it, they're gonna. But if it's just moved off to your door, if you have a little hook that you can hang it on,
It's a great
they'll
idea.
come back and you'll be able to open your door again.
It becomes their wreath then. They can have that. You've got some upcoming programs, I hope, that we can participate in?
Yeah, Scott is our program coordinator. He gets a hold of our speakers and he plans our excursions that we take. Go ahead, Scott.
What's coming up?
So we do programs every third Wednesday of each month at 7 p.m. at the Stark Park Sippo Lake Exploration Gateway. We have a program coming up March 20th. It's by a lady named Lisa Rainsong, and she's very popular for listening in nature. And this program's going to be on amphibians. So you get to hear all kinds of amphibian songs and stuff like that. She's going to go over the types and who produces what sound. And April 17th, we have a young man from the Ohio Bird Conservation Initiative named Matt Schumar. He's going to go over the Ohio Breeding Bird Atlas, which basically is an atlas, and people do all these surveys to see who's breeding in Ohio. So we keep track of what types of birds breed in Ohio and what types don't. They just migrate through. And then on May 15th, we got a program about fireflies from a couple in Pennsylvania named Ken and Peggy Butler. Linda's heard that program
I saw if it was a short program though up in Akron. I loved it. I thought it'd be really great for little kids too.
So much fun.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that fireflies were not everywhere, that not every state has them. When we had company, out-of-state company, the kids went wild over the fireflies in the
different
backyard.
species too, and they blink differently. And
Never knew that.
It's amazing. So I can't wait for that program in May.
So
and
cool.
We don't do all bird programs. That's the thing. We do vary those. We mix them up. Right.
So interesting. Where can we get all this information? Where can we go again? Give us your contact information again.
Well, our website is cantonaudubon.org, and Scott lists the upcoming, because he does the website, he lists the upcoming activities and events. And again, our email is cantonaudubonsociety@gmail.com. It's, pretty easy to remember. And again, I check it regularly. And if you have any questions, and if you want to ask Scott a question, I can make sure he sees it. We have some different people that I do forward. There's bird questions. I forward them to Laura Dornan. She's a bird aficionado.
Our previous president, Alan Dolan, does a every other month newsletter that you can get added to our our mailing list, and we'll mail it out free of charge. So.
Wonderful. Linda Chen, Scott Watkins, thank you so much for what you do in our community.
Thank you for inviting us.